Limiting government. Limiting government? What's the big deal? Sometimes you might hear people talking as if government is an evil monster. Are they overreacting? Are there reasons to fear government? Whose side is government on anyway? Throughout history, there have been governments that had too much power and ended up abusing that power. They limited people's freedom, mistreated people, and even committed mass murders. In some places, that still happens today. Government isn't evil, but the people who run governments do need to be kept in check so that they can't abuse their power. There are several ways to limit government power. A constitution. A constitution is the rulebook for a country's government. A constitution usually explains what kind of government a country has and how that government functions. It also tells how a country's laws are made. It explains the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. Most modern countries have written constitutions. The rule of law. The rule of law means laws are fair, they're enforced, and nobody is above the law. When a country has the rule of law, everyone must follow the law. The government, government leaders, and even the president. Citizens feel secure that government can't just do what it wants, and there are procedures in place to make sure the law is enforced. Separation of power. Separation of power is dividing power among several branches of government. By dividing up the power, a country can make sure that no one person or part of government gets too much control. Separation of power works because each branch of government is able to check or limit what the other branches can do. Each branch is responsible for a different government function. Consent of the governed. When you give your consent, you are giving permission. The consent of the governed means that citizens of a country give their permission to be governed by the country's government, and they do this by voting. Citizens have the right to vote, and they can use their vote to change the government. By voting, citizens can even change the Constitution. And rights of the minority. In a system where citizens are the government because leaders are elected by voting, limiting government means also limiting the power of the majority. In voting, the majority rules. It would be possible for the majority to treat a minority group unfairly. Protecting the rights of the minority means protecting the rights of small or unpopular groups, regardless of what the majority believes. Everyone must be treated fairly. Alberto Fujimori, power in Peru. New president, big ideas. In 1990, a man came to power in Peru that would do things that would shock the world. Peru is a large country in South America. Like the United States, Peru has a constitution that creates a government with a president, a Congress, and a judicial system. But in the 1990s, something happened in Peru that has never happened in America. Alberto Fujimori was born in Peru after his parents emigrated from Japan. When Peruvians elected him to be their president in 1990, he was very popular. Peru had huge financial problems, and Fujimori had ideas for making Peru prosperous. He also had ideas for dealing with a group of terrorists that had been causing problems in the country. But Peru's Congress was filled with lawmakers who opposed Fujimori, and they refused to pass any of his ideas into law. Fujimori takes control. On the night of April 5, 1992, Fujimori took matters into his own hands. He went on television and told Peruvians he was temporarily dissolving Congress and that he would reorganize the judicial branch. There was only one problem. Peru's constitution didn't give Fujimori the power, as president, to do these things. But Fujimori had a solution for that. He used military tanks and tear gas to keep Congress from meeting. He arrested people who disagreed with him, and he also arrested popular journalists and businessmen. Just to be safe, he even arrested the man who had been president before him. And then Fujimori set his sights on Peru's constitution. He issued a decree, or presidential order, saying the constitution could be ignored. His decree also got rid of Congress and gave the president the power to make all the laws. Fujimori then fired almost half of Peru's 23 Supreme Court justices, as well as many other judges around Peru who believed his actions were unconstitutional. The autocrat falls. Having secured control of Peru's government, Fujimori had no trouble carrying out his ideas. He solved Peru's financial crisis, and he successfully dealt with the terrorists that had taken control of several parts of the country. These and other actions made him popular. But that wasn't all that Fujimori did. With no independent judicial system, thousands of suspected terrorists were killed without ever having a trial. On top of this, scandal broke out when one of Fujimori's government officials was caught smuggling drugs, stealing government money, interfering with elections, and selling weapons to terrorists in other countries. Fujimori went to Japan to hide from the scandal. The scandal allowed Fujimori's opposition to gain control, and government in Peru was restored. Later, Fujimori was sentenced to 6 years in prison for abusing his power and 25 years for human rights abuses in Peru. Here's what you need to do to make sure you finish everything today. First thing, take the quiz. You know the deal. 3 questions, 6 points total. 1 point just for answering a question, 2 points for getting it right, 0 points for not getting it done on time. Open book, open note, and open internet. Find the answers where you need, but I recommend going back and listening to the video to find answers. Then we need to complete the review activities. They're checked for completion, and answers are provided on the following slides, along with guidance and instructions to find the correct answers. So make sure that you are following along with everything that happens on the next couple slides, and we get our work done on time. Let's move on. Mark it up. Go back through Alberto Fujimori, Power in Peru, and complete the following steps. If you're not sure, that's the previous slide. What I want you to do is 3 things. Number 1, circle 4 things that should have kept Fujimori's power in check. Number 2, underline the actions Fujimori took to get rid of those checks, and draw a rectangle around the bad things that happened after Fujimori had complete control. Where can I find that information? Look in each paragraph. For number 1, I want you to read the paragraph, New President, Big Ideas. And I will say, all 4 things come pretty close together. For number 2, the actions you're going to underline are going to come in the paragraph, Fujimori takes control. Whenever you underline those, there's going to be a pretty large amount of them, and there's going to be a couple of them that are back to back to back. And then the last one, draw a rectangle around the bad things that happened after Fujimori had complete control. Look at the autocrat falls. And I think you're going to have at least 2 things to draw a rectangle around there. Number 2, or activity B, sequence. Number the following events from 1 to 8 in the order that they happened. 1 is first. A, Fujimori successfully solves the economic problems and terrorism troubles in Peru. B, Fujimori tries to solve the economic crisis but runs into too many obstacles. C, Fujimori is sentenced to a total of 31 years in prison. D, Fujimori dissolves Congress and says the Constitution can be ignored. E, President Fujimori flees to Japan. F, Fujimori is elected president of Peru. G, Fujimori uses tanks and tear gas to stop Congress from meeting. And H, scandal breaks out over illegal activity in Fujimori's government. So if I look at these, I have to try to find the first one. And if I use the reading, they come in the exact right order. So let me start with number 1. Well, for anything to happen, he has to be elected president. And he was legally elected. Now, I'm going to look at here, what has to be number 2? Well, he wouldn't be able to successfully solve it without unsuccessfully trying to solve it. Well, he wouldn't be sentenced to prison quite yet. He doesn't dissolve Congress, because that would be after he would have some issues. Scandal wouldn't break out quite yet. It definitely has to be B, where Fujimori tries to solve the economic crisis. These come in the exact order that they follow in the article, so go back and look. And let's look at C, pros and cons. What are the benefits of having one leader with total control? What are the drawbacks? Brainstorm 4 ideas and fill in the organizer below. You don't have to repeat what's in the reading. It's okay to use your own ideas, so be creative here. I'm going to give you 2 a benefit and a drawback. For me, a big benefit would be that they can quickly make decisions. As in our country, sometimes it takes a long time to address problems, but if there's only one person who sees a problem, they can fix it quickly. A major drawback is, well, they could be evil. They could try to kill people. And we kind of saw that with Fujimori. And I'm sure you can think of other examples on your own. So I want you to think of 3 more benefits and 3 more drawbacks. And our last must-do activity is this no limits. Read each event. Which limit on government failed? Write it on the line above the event. Well, or below the event. Fujimori's government interfered with elections. So if I go back and look at the reading and I think about, well, which one has to do with voting and elections? Well, the Constitution, it can talk about elections. We'll keep that in mind. Rule of law more has to do with crime and punishment and that sort of thing. Separation of power talks about having different responsibilities in the government. Consent of the governed talks about, well, giving your permission to government, and you do that by voting. And rights of the minority talks about protecting unpopular groups. Well, the Constitution would be close, but I also see in number 4, Fujimori ordered the Constitution to be ignored. Well, that seems like he's definitely ignoring the Constitution. But I'm going to go with consent of the governed here. So go ahead and finish those other ones on your own. And then finally, letter E is a can do. If you like crosswords, you can go ahead and do this. I'll do 3 across with you. Minority rights are needed in order to treat everyone this way, and that is going to be fairly. But what I want you to do is, if you have extra time and you are caught up on all your work and you feel good about your vocab, maybe go ahead and work on letter E. Like always, guys, please raise your hands if you need help, if you're confused, if you're lost. Not mind readers, we're teachers. Raise your hand.